You're live. Okay. Hello. Naturally, when I go to film these things, I can never seem to locate a couple of books that I thought I had forever, but then vanish. But I did find this one that I think I forgot to mention in the previous video. So just to show that cover, that has nothing to do with this particular, again, what's dark academia adjacent, but not actually academia themed book review. So I have a couple stand-ins that will have to serve our purposes today. Now, I had collected over the years a lot of these things that I have not actually read, or I read bits of them, or some of them I read, but it was so long ago that don't give me a pop quiz, right? So some of these will be a little more obscure and hard to find versions, maybe, so you'll be jealous, and then other ones are still heavily in print. And this is not, I don't know if this is an anthology or a history book per se, but here's one where you might start with something like this. I had meant to show, I always pronounce it Ovid, and nobody ever corrected me, but maybe it's Ovid, I guess. He's a bit more like the Iliad, and I don't have a copy of the Iliad either. But starting, again, I don't know if this is an anthology of their writing or just a synopsis of the actual historians themselves. I just found this recently. Lecture 7, The Political Genius of Rome. You know, I don't know how much YouTube allows you to read of these things, but the influence of Greek on Roman historiography. Okay, so there's, like I said, not exactly literature, but something you might want to look into. More obviously, then, of course, would be everybody signs up for a mythology class expecting to get this, and instead they often get more world mythology and that kind of thing, and a little less Aphrodite and Athena and Zeus and whatnot. This one comes with pictures and things. I don't know how much I'm allowed to show. Another one that I haven't had a chance to really go through. So this one is going to stand in, even though this has nothing to do with mythology or whatever. But like I said, yeah, the Iliad one I have not had in quite some years now. I don't know how much of that I read, but again, similar to Ovid, but clearly people expect you to get the references when they title their books after mythological characters from antiquity. So there is that. It is a touchstone, if nothing else. Of course, in mythology, we're meant to infer portions of our personality based on the characters themselves and all that kind of thing, blah, blah, blah. What this has to do with academia, not as much. Mostly academia is projecting an image of yourself that other people will assume is learned or smart, or whether you are or not, I guess these days, what you can project. But again, this, though, not necessarily being, there's a lot of words, it's long, but is it literary? Is it full of symbolism and all that kind of thing? I doubt it. I mean, I don't know that I've read most of the Odyssey either. I mean, there are movies we can also reference. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? Clash of the Titans. Gladiator and all those kind of things. Julius Caesar, even more historical fiction or whatever than tragedy or fantasy or. I mean, this was basically the science fiction of the day, right? I mean, I was lazy when I did the thumbnail and I used a fairy tale picture, but I kind of intentionally used a fairy tale picture because, again, before or after, even Romeo and Juliet, or whatever. We also have, the rom-com in play form instead of fiction. And of course, similar to that. Oh, are you kidding? I grabbed them. I didn't bring them in here. Okay, embarrassing moment. But I'll have to show it later. But yes, poetry. And even though he's not ancient Greek, I was going to show the covers from the Dante books, but I left them in the other room when I was trying to find those other two books that would have been more of this theme anyway. So yes, Dante, not Greek, not Roman, not as ancient. He's the Renaissance or whatever. But yeah, so good luck finding stuff like this these days, I guess. But definitely, to Aphrodite, these wreaths, to Athena, this lock of my hair, So here they're directly referencing, maybe not in the entire book. And I don't know if this is, again, I assume a compilation of different writers at different times. So they might not all be just watching plays and then writing poems, but certainly the pop culture references of their day was also their religion, right? To a large degree, but not entirely, because again, centaurs and things aren't really religious figures, and cyclopses and the Kraken. Release the Kraken. Do it. So then we get into more of the, I guess, philosophical tragedies or the pre-Shakespeare stuff more accurately. So we've got here I have the Oresteia, which I read very long time ago. The Furies was the other one. I don't. The Fates and the Furies and the da. Yes. Again, been a long time since I read this. Don't remember all of it per se. Remember it all that well. I have this kind of, image in my head of, ravens or something, or magpies or something chasing somebody over a mountain that might be, more a Wagner image than an actual Greek one. I don't know, or vultures or buzzards or that kind of thing, should feature prominently in your. And what Hector being mutilated by wild dogs was the other one. The one I don't have the cover of the thing. And of course, that's a different movie than Gladiator, which of course is just a mostly pointless revenge fantasy. And of course, the one that I read in high school, again, another pop song, or two pop song references, of course. One was, of course, the infamous The Doors, Apocalypse Now tie-in with the Heart of Darkness and all that. We did that 2 reviews ago. And so, like I said, I could not find the actual book, but of course, Sophocles' immortal tragedy, Oedipus the King, or Oedipus Rex, and Antigone. There was a Tom Lehrer song, if you haven't heard it, that I had actually heard many times on Dr. Demento as a high school sophomore or whatever, that really explains the whole gist of the thing before you get into Psych 1 and have to hear the boring side of it from, old Siggy, Sigmund, as he was referred to in, what is that World War II book? A Separate Peace or whatever? I don't remember the titles. So yeah, so not exactly, but since this video's a bit shorter, because again, I didn't dig out every single Greek tragedy, and I certainly wasn't going to delve into a synopsis of all of them. Just stuff you should be expected to read. But of course, then there's also the King Arthur stuff. This one, there was a couple more that I had, and I got rid of them, and I don't know why, and I hadn't read them. And now I kind of wish I had them back so I could at least try to read them all as a series. But these being the older ones that are maybe more of the correct Arthurian legend, I'm not sure. But there were certainly movies of there, Camelot and Sword in the Stone, and or not Camelot. Camelot was the older. Excalibur was the one I was thinking of. Which again, not Greek, but going into sort of historical mythology, but not quite fairy tale, but some of them having more mystical elements than others, because of course the Lady in the Lake and Merlin and Morgan Le Fay or Morgana, and all that. So definitely kind of a through line, even though I'm skipping, centuries, obviously, and things that might exist in between. But it does get spotty, doesn't it? Especially when we're dealing with drama, which cultures really prioritized stage over other oral traditions, I guess. Blah, blah, blah. Another argument we can have in our mythology class, more than we're really necessarily even having in our drama or literature class. And of course, some of the drama of the Middle Ages and things of the Western world is, again, more based on religion than, pop culture or whatever. German nuns writing their tragedies and all that kind of thing. So definitely not, exciting academia per se, as opposed to, again, less literary but more entertaining dragons and knights and shining armor and all that kind of thing. There are others, of course, the Canterbury Tales and not Chaucer, but Beowulf and all that kind of thing. I don't remember if I rambled on about those in the first video or not. Most likely I did, so we'll skip it for now. And like I said, yeah, this is definitely not going to be a long video. I wish I had 2 or 3 more of the book covers here. Definitely 2. No, yeah, 3. Because, yeah, Sophocles, Iliad, and Ovid, whatever. So 3 there that I can't properly show. And of course, Dante, which should likely be a separate video with Cyrano anyway, in the rom-com the rom-com section, which of course flies in the face of the dark academia entirely, but definitely doesn't necessarily predate the Arthurian legend, but predates the written Arthurian legend, I believe, as we have it. Not sure what year this was, but that other people will know off the top of their head. But so yeah, this is only, I mean, I would have to read the entire introduction likely to get, if there even is one, to get any historical notes as opposed to just the publishing notes. Because yeah, I'm pretty sure this was written well before 1973, unless I'm referencing the wrong book and this was just modern fiction that I've grabbed instead of the other one that I was thinking of. In the edition of 1485, okay, yeah, which this volume follows. So this Dante came after that then, right? Didn't he come in the 1500s? It doesn't matter. Again, project how smart you look as opposed to how many trivial pursuit facts you can remember regarding literature that you haven't fully read. But I did always equate the Dante concept to the Hieronymus Bosch or whatever, Bosch, painting triptych in a sort of another kind of through line, not spiritual, but well, I mean they're both kind of based on spirit. Oh, the other one I meant to mention was Milton, of course, Milton, which gets lampooned in Animal House. Mrs. Milton found him boring too. Another one that I used to have and don't have here, but doesn't really fit in this category anyway. So maybe we'll come back and discuss Knights in Armor and Bravehearts and Walter Scott's and other things of that nature, which again are technically mythology in a sense, but get lumped in as literature, but at the time when they were written were pop culture. So again, not necessarily all full of, devout symbolism or other, literary symbolism. And of course, I have to mention what Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where, we're not necessarily talking about the Arthur legend, but in that vein, the Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and all that, the offshoots, I guess, of the Arthur legend, if we want to think of it that way. The sequels or the spin-offs. So yeah, so those are a bunch more recommendations of things you might delve into study if you're young or not so young and just curious, or feel like there's some gap in your, mental collection or whatever. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is stuff that I think used to be considered, very core, and now it's kind of shuffled off to the side in favor of other, I'm sure, much more contemporary things most of the time. But when I took drama classes as a prerequisite, like I said, I still had to read this and the other one and whatnot. That was like our whole beginning starting point. And I will belabor the point now here, of course, was the problem I had at the time, because being a film major, Greek tragedy is not, I don't know, so interactive, I guess. A lot of it is not, well, it's definitely not those movies with Brad Pitt where it's a lot more people standing off to the side telling you everything that you would like to see, and then the actual action is just two people like yapping for a bit, and then those three yap some more, and not a whole lot of actual action. And they might mention chariot races, but it's kind of really hard to reenact a chariot race on a really small stage in front of 2,000 people or whatever. So overall, I would suspect that most people will enjoy the films more, even if they're not, completely faithful or whatever. But and also, again, translated from a different language, but again, not necessarily language that's, so poetic that too much will get lost in the shuffle, as opposed to maybe some Italian or Spanish or French or whatever. So, as always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, and I'll try to think of something smart sounding to reply with, or intelligent enough to pass for an excuse to make a 20-minute video about books that I haven't read in years or never finished.